Jai Jain, everyone. I hope you all are having a good time. I welcome you all to our online monthly lecture series on Jainism. On behalf of everyone at International School for Jain Studies, I welcome everyone here. I have the dignitaries. I have our president, Dr. Shuganjan Jain. I have the speaker, Professor Chapple. I have the chair, Professor Asar Bhatt. And I have our acting director, Dr. Pandey, with us, and I have all of you. So without any much ado, I would just ask you to join your hands for Manglacharan. Namo Rihantaram. Namo Siddharam Namo Namo Vajjayanam Namo Loe Sapsahuram Eso Panchanamo Yaro Savapavapanasano Mangalanam Cha Savvesim Padamam Havadi Mangalam Nirasta Karma Sambandham Sukshmam Nityam Niramayam Vandeham Paramatmanam Anupam Anupadravam Vandeham Paramatmanam Anupam Anupadravam. Thank you, everyone. Now I would request our acting director, Dr. Pandey, to welcome you all formally and present an introduction for all the dignitaries. Dr. Pandey.
Namaskar, Jai Jain. I welcome you all to the 6th online lecture series by International School for Jain Studies under the monthly lecture on different aspects of Jainology. First of all, I would like to welcome our president and founder of ISGS, Dr. Suganji. I would like to welcome co-founder ISGS, Dr. Subir Jainji. I welcome other dignitaries here with us, Professor Pankaj Jain, Professor Prakash Chand Jainji, Professor Patricia from Brazil, Mr. Leonardo from Brazil, Mr. Irfan from China, and other my dear participants from different part of the globe. I also welcome my colleagues, Professor Ashok Singh, Pragya ji, Mukesh ji, and dear friends. You all are aware that since its inception of ISGS, we organize summer programs for different levels of students, researchers, and scholars. And later on, we introduced a 10-day winter school and 9-month Prakrit studies program. So, as you know, the COVID-19 pandemic forced the entire world to move toward online platform to impart the knowledge. And we were also not lagging behind. We shifted our winter and 3-week program from offline to online. And as new initiatives, we started some short-term courses on Prakrit language and literature and a monthly online lecture series. And we are here for the 6th lecture under the series. Besides, we have announced a 10-day online program on Jainology in Hindi, particularly for our Indian friends. We have also announced a 8-week Bhagwan Naminath Fellowship for writing and research skills, and we will conduct this program in Delhi at Vallabh Smarak. So for all the details about our programs and activities, you all are requested to visit our website www.isgs.in. Before I invite Pragya to proceed the program, I would like to present a brief introduction to our today's speaker and session chair. As you know, Professor Chapple is the speaker for today's lecture on religion in Jainism. Professor Chapple is a Doshi Professor of Indic and Comparative Theology at Loyola Marymount University, Los Angeles, California. He is a specialist in the religion of India and has published more than 20 books, including Karma and Creativity, Nonviolence and Animal Serve, and Self in Asian Traditions, Reconciling Yoga, Haribhadraj Yog Drishti Samuchay, Yoga and Luminous, and Living Landscape Meditation on the Element in Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain Yoga. So Professor Chapple serves as an advisor to the Forum on Religion and Ecology, Yale, the Dharma Academy of North America, Berkeley, the Jain Studies Center, SOAS, London, and the South Asian Studies Association. He is also an active member of ISGS Advisory Committee. He is actively associated with our many academic programs. So we are fortunate to have such learned scholar with us as a speaker. Today, the session chair is Professor S.R. Bhatt. Professor S.R. Bhatt is an internationally known philosopher, Sanskritist, and authority of ancient Indian culture. At present, he is a national fellow of ICSSR, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Presently, he is chairman of Indian Philosophy Congress and Asian African Philosophy Congress. He is a member of General Council of Indian Council of Cultural Relation and Academic Council of Nalanda International University. He is a member of Board of Advisors of Council of Research in Value and Philosophy, Washington, D.C. Professor Bhatt retired as professor and head of philosophy from Delhi University, and after retirement, he joined Emeritus Fellowship of University Grant Commission, India. Thereafter, he served as chairman, Indian Council of Philosophical Research, Ministry of Education, Government of India. As he is a well-known figure in the field of philosophy, he has lectured in many universities in India and abroad, and he is associated with ISJS from its inception. So once again, I welcome you all. Jai Jinendra, and over to you, Pragya.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey, for introducing everyone. So we have the speaker, we have the chair, and we have all of you. So I think we should not delay at all. So we will start the lecture on religious pluralism in Jainism by Professor Chapple. Professor Chapple.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see such a robust turnout. It's early morning here into the evening in India. The marvel of technology allows us once again to connect. And I wanted to start with lyrics from a song that was popular many years ago. There ain't no good guy, there ain't no bad guy, there is just you and I, and sometimes we disagree. And this song was played on the radio back in the day, and it really became an anthem of how do we negotiate a divided, a fissured world. And what it suggests in the spirit of Anekantavada is that as much as I feel different from any one of you, to label you as the good guy and me as the bad guy. Okay? That's one psychology of self-negation. Or as much as I want to label myself as the good guy and you as the bad guy, and that would be the psychology of arrogance and ego, nothing, absolutely nothing is to be gained. And as we look at, not too far from the borders of India, the dispute in Ukraine, it escalated from so many causes and factors. And as a result, countless, tens of thousands of lives have been lost. A new partition has opened. Many of you have been affected by that sort of standoff from 1947, when 3 nations, 4 nations, 5 nations were created in the region of South Asia. And in my own family history, my grandparents dislocated when the borders changed in Hungary. My great-grandparents dislocated from England because of family dispute. This is so much the human condition. So I'm going to bear with me a second as I find the right modality for sharing what I have prepared. Okay, I'm getting close. And I trust you can see now the title. I wanted to share with an overview of all that has been at stake in the world's religions vis-a-vis division. And this is just to give us a taste of what is at stake with religious pluralism. With Christianity, there are so many churches, so many denominations with firmly held views. The Roman Catholic Church, its fidelity to tradition and to the Pope. The Orthodox Church and its fidelity to the bishops of more local regions, the Greek Patriarch, the Russian Patriarch, the Ukrainian Patriarch, and so on. The monophysitical traditions of Egypt and Syria, with its various theological disputes. And then starting in 1453, the many denominations of the Protestant movement, started by Martin Luther, Lutheranism, Presbyterianism, Calvin and Knox, Methodism, the Wesley brothers in England, Quakerism, George Fox in 17th century England, the Amish, another denomination within Protestantism that, like the Quakers, abjures all involvement in war. And then arising a little more than 100 years ago from here in Los Angeles, the Pentecostal movement that introduces shamanic ecstasies into Christian worship, including speaking in tongues, falling into a swoon. And then the broad category of the evangelicals that say that unless you are saved by Jesus, you have lost all hope. Now, another example of pluralisms within pluralisms. Within Judaism, people that follow the letter of the law, the pronouncements given in the books of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, who keep kosher, who separate their kitchen so that dairy products are prepared in one kitchen and meat products are prepared in another kitchen, and all of the food eaten must be kosher. Strict adherence to the Sabbath on Friday night, throughout the day on Sunday. And then we get, starting in 1848, a new movement within Judaism called the conservative movement and the reform movement. There was a proclamation in none other than Cincinnati, Ohio, that said, we are modern people and we accept the laws of Judaism only to the extent that they are reconcilable with what we have learned from the philosophers who teach the principles and premises of natural law. So reason reigned supreme, and no longer were people necessarily bound within these denominations to the strict observances of Sabbath. And then a return movement, the Hasidim, throughout the era of pogroms in Europe. Religious leaders would rise up and say, no, we must go back to our Orthodox ways. All of this, whether Christian, I just returned from Northern Ireland, where I saw some 400 years later, the loyalists to the king marching in parades, celebrating the Battle of the Boyne, that saw the victory of the Protestants over the Catholics. And as I spent days in the company of Catholics who continue to suffer persecution in many subtle ways, there's just such great lament that the grandness of what religion has to offer so often becomes eclipsed by difference. Sunni Islam, adherence to Sharia, adherence to the Quran as authority, and the Shia, predominant, of course, within Iran and most of Iraq, much of Iraq, adding to that fidelity to the great descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, including his son Ali. And then the emphasis also, whether Sunni or Shia, on the interior life. The most quoted poet in the world, Rumi, not a beacon of division, not exactly a voice of reason, but a marvelous poet who appeals to matters of the heart. We look at Hinduism with all of its grand tapestry of pluralisms. Devotion to Lord Shiva and to the Devi, to Parvati, to Durga, to Uma, to all of her various forms. Modeling one's life simultaneously through the work of Shiva's sons, joy with Ganesh, and administration with Skanda, modeling one's life, mutual devotion, Purusha and Prakriti, Shiva and Shakti. So much richness, and so different from what we find in Vaishnava traditions. With Vaishnava traditions, we have so many stories. The 10 avatars, the great narrative of Lord Ram, debated, retold from so many different perspectives. Some, Ravana the demon, the tribal peoples that must be vanquished, and others, Ravana with virtue, and the tribal people allowing justice to be restored. Ram's not so wonderful treatment of his own wife, and Ram's expiation for difficulties experienced. And with Vaishnavism, we also have the Bhagavata Purana, we have the stories of Lord Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita itself, which calls out so many different forms of yoga. And we have a little bit of built-in evolution with the tortoise, Narasimha, the man lion, the various Ramas, and then looking forward to Kalki, a future avatara who will restore order to the world. And we look at Charvaka, authentically Hindu, saying that mythology, fine, but all that really matters is enjoyment within this life. Vedanta, which seeks to eradicate all differences and give over the human pettiness into a place of blessed connection. Yoga, the techniques used in order to honor, in order to connect with that higher sense of self and being. Sankhya, everything merits reflection and analysis. Everything merits delineation within and into categories large and small. Purusha Prakriti is a quiet self and an active self. The three gunas, that active self can be elevated, energetic, and passive. The human condition of the bhavas and the samskaras and the vasanas, the human psychology that congeals into ego and then sets forth the human body to engage through the doors of perception, world upon world upon world. Hey, Hinduism, so very much to offer. And then Buddhism. Theravada, which replaced a Vajrayana in Southeast Asia to become the prominent faith in that region of the world 1,000 or so years ago. The Mahayana that rose up both on the maritime routes and on the overland routes, going from the southeast coast with the work of Nagarjuna and going with the traders up through Central Asia, generating a new way of doing Buddhism with a new set of remarkable collections of literature, the Mahayana Sutras and Shastras. And then another school of Buddhism, the Vajrayana, that seems to turn all of the teachings of both Theravada and Mahayana upside down. Confucianism, arising, as did Taoism from Japan, rather from China, and then spreading to Korea, to Japan, and then amalgamating 1,000 years ago with Buddhism. Pluralism in worldview and in life ways, also in Western history, shows up in the 19th century with this remarkable conflict between capitalism, Adam Smith earlier, and Karl Marx, communism, and then the sort of socialism that seems to moderate between the two. But nonetheless, particularly as we look at the history of empire, if we look at even the British Empire and how it ran roughshod over so much of the world, what is the underlying ideology? Veni, vidi, vici. Okay, these are the famous words of Julius Caesar that come down to us through history. And these are words that give us pause. And what is the pause? I saw it, I went there, and I conquered. These are words of cruelty. Now, the alternative. How do we step back from the human propensity, from the human inertia that leads again and again throughout human history to division and divide? And I quote again that popular song, there ain't no good guy, there ain't no good bad guy, there's only you and I, and sometimes we disagree. Now, what is the nature of agreement? What is the nature of disagreement? Now, all of those traditions, and there are thousands more that could have been put up on the screen, all of those traditions were originated in good faith, quite literally good faith, originated through communities who came up with an idea, who came up with practices that bring peace and solace. And in those early formative, what Friedrich Nietzsche would call Dionysian moments, there's an exuberance, a joy in new creation that then settles, quite literally, in many instances, into a concrete that deadens. Okay, the fluidity of that initial creative moment, that Dionysian moment, solidifies through the Apollonian into this is what we do. And if you choose, you can do this, but you are different than me. Now, this judgment mind, at the core of the human condition, leads to difficulty, leads to conflict, leads to, at its worst, destruction of unimaginable proportions. And it's with us all the time. I'm not you, you're not me. One of the beauties of what Acharya Tulsi put together in requiring two samanis, two sadhvis, two sadhus to always accompany one another is that constantly negotiating the you and the me. My own yoga training with Gurani Anjali, one of the sadhanas that she originated in our small community was pairing people together who were very, very, very different. And I remember quite vividly, she would say, without me, there is no you, and without you, there is no me. And I had to work for a full summer with someone, my total personality and in all ways so different. And it was not easy. We learned from one another. A little bit of our edges were softened. But this is the great challenge of how do we cope with difference? So I wanted to lift up this model. Some of you have heard this, but it's always good to revisit. The story told, about 1,000 years ago. My colleague, Abhishek Jain, wrote his PhD about these stories. They've been translated by Phyllis Granoff, and it's really quite a charming narrative where a very proud Brahmin, okay, and I have to sort of make the analogy that, okay, I just showed you, I know all this stuff about religion and I've been studying it and teaching it for many decades. And, you know, I could be sort of puffed up. I got this title and connections. And this was the case with Haribhadra. And I'd like to think that this story is about an archetype. These series of stories speak to the human condition experienced throughout history by more than one person. I'd like to think that each and every one of you, it could be Haribhadra Srinetra Pandey, Haribhadra Shugin Jain, Haribhadra Pragya Jain, Haribhadra Chuck Hamilton, and in this case, we're going to look at Haribhadra Virahanka and Haribhadra Yakani Putra. The first, Virahanka, wrote a book called the Yogadrishti Samuchaya, rather Yoga Bindu, that deals with pluralism, and the second, Yakani Putra, a book that deals with the conflicts inherent when the Jain view comes into conflict with other views, encapsulated in a work known as the Yogadrishti Samuchaya. And at the core of this is a story of remorse, repentance, and reconciliation. The remorse. This very proud man, born into the Brahmin caste, undoubtedly, given his acumen, educated in not only all four Vedas and their successor texts, the Upanishads, and the philosophical synopses given in Mimamsa, and Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Vedanta, Sankhya, and Yoga. We know from the vocabulary that he uses that he was so highly educated that probably none of us could hold a candle to his intellect. And he proudly proclaimed that if anybody can teach me anything I don't know, I will become their disciple. And he heard a yakshi, a woman, a sadhvi, chanting, talking from the Taparta Sutra, that remarkable 10-chapter encapsulation of karma theory, cosmology, ethics, and freedom. And it stopped him in his tracks. And he asked this Yakani, bring me to your teacher. And he became convinced. He learned those 10 chapters. He learned the commentarial variations on those 10 chapters. And he grew even more hungry. And he said, there's something going on in Nalanda. Dr. Bhatt, part of the venerable tradition of the monastery in Nalanda. If you've not visited, I highly recommend. It's a campus that rivals any modern campus. 40,000 young people dedicated to the study and practice of Buddhism, flourishing for several hundred years, training people that from there went into Tibet, from there went from South India over into China, and Japan, and Korea, that went not only the Silk Route over into China, but went, having trained at Nalanda, all the way to the Mediterranean, influencing the Manichaean faith, the faith that gave shape to St. Augustine and gave shape to Catholicism and Protestantism as we have them today, through their emphasis on the improvement of human behavior and their theory that we are riven with karmas that must be expunged. Okay, we hold so much in common. We know we can do better. And Haribhadra said to his two nephews, go find out what they're teaching there. And at that time, so much was happening. The Vajrayana was stirring. The tantric practices were soon to blossom forth. The Mahayana, love everyone, put others always in front of your own interest, grounded in the Theravada, meditate, reflect on the pervasiveness of dukkha, of human suffering. And when those two nephews sat in those lectures, they aroused some suspicion, because even though they had donned the robes of a novice monk, their face would betray them from time to time, as when the person holding forth within the room would utter a teaching about, for instance, no self. And in Buddhism, there's no room for these categories of Satchidananda. There's no room for a theory, as we find it in Jainism, of the jiva. And they were put to a test. And they were asked to step on an image of a very clearly recognizable jina, either Mahavira or Parshvanath, and they said, I can't do it. And they ran away. One of them, a faster runner, the other was caught, put on trial, and killed. The other ran all the way back, presumably from Nalanda in Bihar, to Haribhadra's house in Gujarat, or his mat, or found him if he was wandering on the road, as presumably he would have been, taught him everything that he learned about Buddhism, and then died. And Haribhadra said, oh, so sad. But before he came to that place of remorse and repentance, he said, now I have their arguments. Now I will defeat them in debate. I will explain to them that, no, the jiva is real. karma is real. I don't like Vedanta, and I really don't like Buddhism. I don't like Vedanta because it says that everything is one, and I'm not the same as you. And I don't like Buddhism because it says I don't really exist, and I know I exist. I heard. And I can come into a place of calm that's real. And in debate after debate after debate, and given the period in time when this story was told, and given what I know about Guru Tegh Bahadur, I'm wondering if the story was told as an allegory, inviting those who were subjected to torture because of their religious views, and that this was not okay. And we know that such, in the Christian world, people were killed if they made certain pronouncements. In the Islamic world, the Hindu world, the Buddhist world, okay, people die because of their firmly held religious convictions. And it's said that he defeated 1,400 people in debate, and that they themselves were led to cauldrons of boiling oil and tortured and died. Then he felt great remorse that he had done exactly what the enemy, quote, had done. And he came to this insight. There is no good guy. There is no bad guy. There is only you and I, and we disagree. So what? So it's said that for each of those lives lost, he wrote a text. 1,400 holdings forth recorded. And we have a few dozen, actually several dozen, attributed to Haribhadra. And we can imagine, and I like to, lift up all of us engaged in the good work of discourse, that how many hundreds and thousands of talks will we give in our lifetime, hopefully in the service of the goodness of okay, so hold on one second. I'm going to switch over to a different slideshow. Oops, not that one, but okay, this one. And the review of so many religions, so many denominations, a review of Haribhadra from the 6th century and the Yoga Bindu, Haribhadra of the 8th century, Yoga Drishti Samuchaya, and then just beckoning toward the later yoga traditions of Hemachandra and Yashovajaya in the 17th and 18th centuries, influenced directly by Haribhadra. So the first olive branch put forth in the Yoga Bindu says that freedom goes by many names. Through one's power, one becomes liberated. And Haribhadra uses the term moksha clearly from, yes, the Jain, but the Hindu tradition as well. Or one becomes awakened, and he uses the term bodha, which is clearly from the Buddhist tradition. And he also states another way to look at this is to end the enemy of karma. And we opened with the invocation of the Namakar mantra, with honoring those who have gone before and cast aside, some Tirthankaras, others Siddhas, all of them Arhats, all of them successful in overcoming the difficulties of karma. He says, we all want to be free. It's our human yearning. Second, he says, let's look at the qualities held by those who achieve solidity within the path. And these four foundations, these four modes of engagement are lifted up in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Hinduism, in the Yoga Sutra, in text after text after text. And it says that one should, he's paraphrasing Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, one should develop maitri or metta toward those who possess goodness. One should possess and develop and cultivate sympathetic joy for those who have superior qualities. One should generate compassion for those afflicted with pain. And equanimity, samatha, toward those who are without knowledge. The Brahmavihara, our best, our highest mode of self. So who are these who suffer? Those whose existence and very world are extremely vitiated due to clinging and dishonesty are not among those with spiritual intent. These embodied souls, and this is Market at Night in Rishikesh, have experienced various lifetimes, returning within samsara without beginning, their lifetimes here seem endless. Due to being overcome with excessive sins, many people avoid reflecting upon knowledge. Like blind people descending into the cover of darkness, they have no light. And I don't want you to just other, like, oh, those terrible people out there in the marketplace. But each human knows that descent into the cover of darkness. And at various moments in life, people rejoice in worldly existence and they become miserable, driven by the three sensations: hunger, fear, and possessiveness, ahara, bhaya, and parigraha, miserable. Although they may want to do the right thing, although they may want to do dharma, their deeds are stewed, bhakti, cooked from pach, in worldliness, loka. And then a quote, and if someone has some wisdom and some help, Gopendra. Are these quotes from the Lord of the Gopis? Are these quotes from Krishna texts? We don't really know. And if someone knows, let me know, because I'm in the process of putting together the book based on our translation of the Yoga Bindu. But just as one is overcome by entrenched disease, dwells endlessly in a state of ruin, so also is the case for one whose understanding and purpose are obscured. And Haribhadra Virahanka goes on to say, if one engages in sullied actions, great misfortune ensues indeed. Like falling after climbing a mountain, or the agony that one experiences from eating poisonous food, one should see the eternal misfortune caused by sullied action and then turn to yoga. Yoga is the best wish-granting tree, the highest jewel of consciousness, the source of dharmas. It brings one to the perfection of self. It is the fire applied, the purifying fire that burns away the seeds of rebirth. It is the highest maturity of the aged. It lays waste to all sufferings. It is called the death of death. The sharp weapons of passion are always blunted when they encounter action suffused with tapas and a mind protected with the defenses of yoga. Furthermore, stability, firmness, and faith are born from yoga, as well as friendliness, love for humanity, and brilliant pratibha, tuition about things. Freedom from grasping produces acceptance of loss and gain. No good and bad, just sometimes we disagree. With the passage of time, it is inevitable that all externals will fade. Yoga increases joy, patience, proper behavior. It brings purity. It causes one to be received as a teacher with unsurpassed serenity and happiness. Indeed, success in this is seen today in learned people and women. And many texts talk about yoga. It is said that those who know the yoga path, whose stains have been shaken off by the rigor of its practice, who are established, possessed of yoga, are the same, equal, whether in darkness or light. And it says that once you become part of that rhythm of good practice, and I woke up with lovely dreams this morning, probably anticipating being with all of you. It said that beautiful dreams arise. Visions of one's chosen deity. Here's an image of a bodhisattva that I acquired in Varanasi in 1981. The yogis established in good action mainly see thrilling gods, gurus, brahmins, and sadhus in their dreams, driving away all lower states. And then this past life thing, it's real in Jainism. It's real in Buddhism. It's real in yoga. We have lived countless lives through brahmacharya, through upholding ourselves, through tapas, through being consistent in our yoga, our fasting, our silence, our observance of the vratas, and our observance of asanas, through reflection on sacred literature, through the recitation of mantra, through making pilgrimage, through honoring and learning about one's parents, sorting out like what of me comes from them, what of me comes from a past life, as indicated in the Sankhyakarika, and then by engaging in acts of benevolence, such as offering medicine to the sick, and through the cleansing of deity images for the Murti Puja types of going forward and maintaining, it's said that there will be spontaneous remembrance of past lives, which can be elusive, like waking up from a dream and not being able to catch it. But nonetheless, this practice is a yoga that brings us to a place of understanding where we are no longer compelled to those influences of past karmas. Another way, and again, what he's emphasizing here is this is held in common across traditions. Japa, from reciting, say the Namokar mantra, arises divine grace, Devata Anugraha. arises the cultivation of insight, avidiyate, that this noble recitation, this Sat mantra, which is Devata Stotra, when we think of the singing that goes on in temples of all denominations all over the world. Why do people sing? Because it cleanses the soul. Sins, papa, dissolve, hara. Poisons, visha, are removed. So do this in front of a deity or just outdoors where the free flowing water is pure. Go into a beautiful grove of trees. And then it gives the mechanics, the specifics. Count on the joints of your finger or on your mala beads, and you'll find that a stability settles in at the tip of the nose, an allusion to the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and you'll find inner peace, prashanta, antara, atmana. This is praised by the noble sages. From it, dharma always arises. And do puja. Okay, this was getting ready for Diwali when we were living in South Delhi. And who do we need to honor? The list is long. It includes women and men, mothers and fathers, teachers of the arts, the elderly, teachers of Dharma. Honor them 3 times a day through bowing or at least thinking about them. And although this is not a universal practice across all denominations, whether we're in the Jain family of religious practice or the Christian family of religious practice, some abjure all rituals, but here saying that, well, if you're a lay person and there's a temple, why not? And it even goes so far, and this would not be the case in a Jain temple, but this is saying that, when the Hindus offer the flowers that we just saw in the prior, that they're doing it in good spirit. When they offer food, they're doing it in good spirit. Vastra, stotra, shobhama. Householders should honor all the great souls, all of the gods with a will and inclination that does not discriminate against any of them. All gods merit honoring, not just one preferred god. Those who worship all gods have controlled their senses and overcome their fears and difficulties. So I'm saying, honor traditions. Now, I know we're drawing to the close of the hour, and I have to plug my computer in or we're going to be in trouble. So what I would like to do is I'll regroup my technology a little bit on this side. And okay, we're powered up now, and just share a few parting categories that are lifted up. We all benefit from giving as well as receiving. We all benefit from the practice of fasting. It's found in Christianity, it's found in Judaism, it's found in Islam, it's found in Buddhism. Every day they fast, only 2 meals a day if you're a Buddhist monk or nun. Found, obviously, to the ultimate within Jain practice. And then how do we think about yoga? We enter the spiritual path. We do our best in the world. We learn how to meditate. We not only go into that place of equanimity, but by doing so, we quell those impulses. This is his encapsulation of yoga. Those 5 wonderful practices that lead ultimately to freedom. no longer bound by the past, moving on from the ocean of existence, not attached to karma, identifying Soham with the soul. This is freedom. How do we get there? There is no good guy. There is no bad guy. There's only you and me. And sometimes we disagree. And that simple Anekantavada approach does so much to cut off karmic bondage. When we reflect on 1893, the Parliament of the World's Religions, which convened in Chicago and which convenes periodically, is convening again in Chicago in August. We think of the words of Swami Vivekananda, who appeal to the brothers and sisters of all faiths. We get a sense of what we see in this tableau from Ramtek. We get a sense that there's a goodness showering down from the heavens, filtered through the Torana of that temple space that we have entered, and that we too can stand as Bahubali stood, at least a few moments a day, emulating that divine state wherein the differences and the disagreements dissolve. So I thank you for your attention. And if we have just a few minutes, I'd be more than delighted to have some conversation and respond to anything in the chat.
Thank you so much, Professor Chapple. It was really beautiful. And you started where you ended at the same point. It was lovely. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, you may raise your hands because you cannot unmute yourself due to.
And I know that Dr. Bhatt, of course, will have some response before we go into questions.
Oh, I think we can take questions first if there are any.
Okay.
And then we will go to Professor Bhatt.
Okay.
If somebody wants to comment anything. I don't think so.
Pragyaji, please invite Professor Bhatt.
Yes, yes. We will just go to Professor Bhatt. Sir, please give your comments and appreciations for the lecture.
Thank you very much. It is always a pleasure and privilege to listen to Professor Chapple. He is well steeped in Jain tradition, but also has a good understanding of the world culture and philosophy. So he presented religious pluralism in different parts of the world, or you can say different religions. Religious pluralism has come to stay, and you can't deny it now. It is true. So we have to live with other religions. For this, what we require is some sort of mutual give and take, some sort of sympathetic understanding of other religions. Unfortunately, we don't know our own religion and that much, and much less others' religion. So some sort of education about religion, not religious education, but education about religions is a necessity. Second thing, we must make a distinction between religion and the sects come up within a particular religion. So Sir Chapple has referred to different sects in different religions. Sects, in fact, do not represent the whole of the religion. So, in Hinduism, for example, Vaishnavism is not a religion but a sect. Shaivism is not a religion but a sect. And all conflicts are not religious conflicts. They are conflicts of sects only. So it is a sectarian people who quarrel among themselves and lead to bloodshed. So, therefore, to meet with the different sects within a particular religion. There are differences of opinion. There are disagreements. And Professor Chapple has rightly pointed out these disagreements can be reconciled with the help of the doctrine of Nikantavada. So, his emphasis on Nikantavada also is most welcome. On the whole, Professor Chapple's lecture is very comprehensive. And I congratulate him for this about different regions of the world. Okay, then. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Bhatt, for your words of wisdom. Thank you so much. And I think it's time to call Dr. Shuganji for the words of vote of thanks. Shuganji.
Okay, and I have one more thing that I would like to share before
Yes,
we
sir.
welcome Shugan. And the remarkable dispute that has affected so many of us in Syria, either directly or indirectly, even the heartfelt remorse for the ecological devastation that caused the wholesale abandoning of farms, chaos in general, and then the horrible crackdown on the part of the ruler. But what has happened now in Syria, of all places, is an embrace of religious pluralism. And you can see in this UNICEF refugee camp, yoga is being taught across Syria in playgrounds and stadiums. Children and adults perform yoga routines. They chant Surya Namaskar, and the teachings of Shiva are being preached. And a Syrian had come back from Rishikesh, and I showed you some photos from Rishikesh, opened a yoga studio a couple of decades ago. And now this has been embraced by the president of Syria. And again, a recognition of religious differences, but an embrace of not only yoga, but he's saying, well, let the evangelicals return. Let us do what we can in order to foster understanding with one another. So I invite you to go to The Economist, research this week's issue, and think, could a brutal dictator of that status have had that Haribhadra-like moment of remorse, moving toward repentance, and possibly offering a pathway to reconciliation? So I want to sort of make that extra connection, that what's at stake here is, at the very core, of human life writ small and writ large. So
I
and
agree,
again,
Professor.
look up. I was really astounded by seeing that information in The Economist, and I would love for you all to take a look at that. Okay, Shugen.
Chris, saying thank you to you is like thanking to a dear friend. Okay. Today's, your today's lecture was illuminating in the sense that you relate yoga to religious pluralism. And while I was listening to you, I was looking at the principles of Anekant. Relativity, coexistence, and one more, reconciliation. Now, when I look at these three principles and what you said, yoga, like in the government, in a multiplicity of parties, they say, let us agree to a common minimum program so that we can coexist and people can move up. At least everybody has same thing. And I think a yogi minimizes his worldly, expectations so that he can enjoy himself. And when you do that, yogi, then his conflicts with others will minimize. So this is the gist I got today from your lecture. Thank you very much, because we are working on a project for Philippines on those lines, and this will come handy to me in that light. It was really a totally different picture of religious harmony that you presented. Thank you. And the last one, the Syrian one, is a proof, as you said, the yoga coming together to bring these people together. And today I think we had the largest audience. I don't know why. Maybe it's your name or the subject. So I thank all the participants who are here to make this program so successful, and it encourages us to continue this and put more effort to make it really a opportunity to learn and enhance our knowledge and happiness. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, Professor Chapple. Thank you, Professor Bhatt. Thank you, Surekji. Thank you, everyone. I agree with Professor Chapple when he says that pluralism is the only thing which can make this world a beautiful place. And yoga prepares you for meditation, so it can take you to another level of spirituality. So I think you could also connect with the lecture. Thank you for joining us. We would soon announce the next date and the next title of the lecture the next month. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sugadji, for inviting me.
And Professor Bhatt, thank you that you stayed with us in spite of, I see the black belt on your back and the problems that you have recently. Your presence is really a big encouragement to youngsters and to me. So I consider you as the finest philosopher today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Only today?